It's the purest, it has the immaculate conception. There is no central party who can control it. There is no leader who can tell us, okay, it's time to change this and everyone must follow that leader. It hasn't been the case since Satoshi left, and the community is, you can say that it's toxic, but it only means that it's decentralized and everyone has their own agenda. And if something important is about to happen or some change needs to take place, we all need to agree. And that's all part of it. Everyone is sovereign, everyone has a word to say. The proof of work design makes it super decentralized so that anyone can participate, anyone around the world. It doesn't matter where you are, it doesn't matter what race you are, where you're born, you have equal access and equal opportunity. And that's something that I like about Bitcoin. Other systems, I see that proof of stake is in fashion right now. For that, to participate in governance, you need to buy tokens from the founders. To me, it sounds like a Ponzi. Bitcoin is pure, and it has the largest community, it has the network effects, the brand, the acceptance at merchant places. It's the best money we have. Having people check, verify all the time the supply, and make sure that they participate in a fair system is something that we have never had. Not even during the gold standard could people, like the average person, verify the supply of the money. They can never be sure that the government actually owns the gold that they say they do, or that the gold coins in their pockets have the weight that they're supposed to have. So right now, it's so easy to validate, it's so easy to participate in this system that is pure mathematics and makes money scarce again. We can see situations in geopolitics today where governments think that just because they can print money, they can get access to limited resources like gas, like rare metals, but they realize it's very much not the case. If you print more money, you're not really gonna get more food production. Agriculture is limited by the crops of land that you can have. So we need to understand that money should be a scarce resource. Initially, proof of work was created as a way to prevent email spam. It was created by Dr. Adam Back, he's somewhere there. And he basically envisioned a way in which if you wanted to spam people, you needed to incur a real life cost, and that was your computation, and that was energy consumption. So basically, something physical needs to be consumed in order to produce something digital. And that's super important because attacking the system or trying to break the rules has costs. And it's a good incentive, to be honest, when you know that there's going to be a computational and energetic cost. And you can argue that it's wasteful in the case of other projects, but Bitcoin has proven its use case. It has proven that it's useful, for example, to people who get censored from the mainstream financial system. And it's money for the entire world. It doesn't matter where you are, what you do, what kind of political opinions you have. You can receive money, you can send money. It's not a discriminatory system. And that's why it's important. And the proof of work design is an essential part of this lack of centralization and lack of censorship. As if you move to a system which maybe sounds environmentally friendly and doesn't waste energy, that one it also comes with trade-offs with centralization and trade-offs with censorship and limitations in terms of participation to consensus. But Bitcoin, if you want to validate the entire chain and make sure that the rules are being respected, you can do that on a Raspberry Pi, which is about $60, $70, or any laptop that was made in the last 15 years. So you don't have to really use a lot of money to participate in Bitcoin governance. If you want to mine, you're participating in block production. And that one is part of securing the network. And the fact that we have a real life energy, a resource that secures the network, only makes it more valuable and harder to attack. Yeah, pretty much everything can be built on top of Bitcoin. It's all a matter of allocating resources to do it. As for now, the incentives are a bit broken. As people who do research can probably make more money if they launch their own shitcoin. Can I say that on camera? Okay. if they launch their own shitcoin and they hire a marketing department and they say, we have fixed this one Bitcoin problem, but it's not enough for it to become good money. They need to get all the other advantages of Bitcoin, and it will most likely never be decentralized. It will be just an experiment that's going to fail after a few years. The research, I guess, is useful, and I hope that stuff like Zcash, like Monero, like Mimblewimble is going to get added to Bitcoin. I like to think of the entire crypto space as the extended Bitcoin experimentation realm. That's where you see all sorts of experiments and all sorts of ideas being tested before they get added to some Bitcoin layer. And we have ideas and proposals for side chains, drive chains, state chains, extension blocks, all sorts of ways to add functionality without creating a new type of currency. And if it all gets built on top of Bitcoin, it's going to use a better form of money. It's going to be easier to accept worldwide and trade with other parties because we all agree that Bitcoin has value. So everything regarding trade becomes easier and there's no exchange or whatever between currencies. And pretty much every use case, including privacy layers and everything else. Privacy, I think, is the next barrier, not only for human rights purposes, but also to make sure that always one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin and we cannot discriminate in terms of where it has been before. As that's the trade-off with the open ledger. You know where it has been before. You don't know who owned it specifically, but you can see, for example, that it was used on some dark market or something. And you can say that it's not equal to the one that comes from an exchange. And when I received some cash today, I have no idea where it came from. Like somebody gave it to me, I agree that this, I guess, is not counterfeit. I have to check. But I don't have to care where it comes from for it to be good money. And that's the whole point. And that's the way Bitcoin should also be. The privacy in cash is also the kind of privacy we should have in Bitcoin. And that's a use case that I look forward to seeing. Privacy is something you only care about when you realize that you went too far and you're being harassed, someone is coming to your house to steal what you have. You see so many cases of people posting Instagram videos or whatever with the jewelries and their expensive stuff, and then they post pictures on vacation, and basically the thieves know that they're not at home anymore, so they break into their houses and they rob whatever they find. It's one example where financial privacy is important. You have to be cautious, you have to care about what you have enough to protect it. And we live in a culture where we are being encouraged to share a bit too much about our own lives. And we have to understand that this doesn't really scale and there are bad actors there. And privacy can be a way to protect ourselves from all the bad actors out there. We used to have that kind of situation in Romania during the communist era, where at least 2 or 3 of your neighbors in every building were collaborating with the secret police and they were telling information about everyone. And sometimes it was not even criminal, it was only a matter of listening to the wrong radio station. If you're listening to Radio Free Europe, then you're on the wrong side of history. You're listening to American propaganda, so you're an enemy of, the new man under socialism, which meant that you could go to jail for listening to a radio station. That's why we should have privacy, and a healthy society can only develop under a framework where we can accept certain degrees of privacy to the individual. The biggest threat to Bitcoin is if we stop caring about the principles of Bitcoin and we allow it to become a purely institutional or government asset. And this can lead to the same problems that we had with gold. There is no way to verify when you do a contract on CME or whatever financial institution that the contract is backed by actual Bitcoin reserves. We know that there are only 21 million Bitcoin, but institutions can sign contracts for Bitcoins they don't have and basically expose you to an asset that is illiquid, non-existent. And we have seen this kind of situation with all the leverage trading, with Luna and 3 Hours Capital and all of that situation this year, where they were over leveraged. They basically bought Bitcoin that they didn't really own. They were exposed to BTC, the token, the asset on a ticker, but they did not actually have reserves to back everything. And that's dangerous. We can create inflation in Bitcoin with this approach. Basically integrating Bitcoin into the fiat money system means that you're going to have all of these institutions that do fractional reserve dealings. And yeah, that's one of the threats. The other one is if it ends up not having any kind of privacy and the governments step in and they have absolute control and they make you declare like which addresses you own, what kind of node you're running. So every participant to the network is known by his name. And that's the most dangerous situation, as that's even worse than the banking system. In the banking system, at least, you have privacy against your neighbors. But Bitcoin is an open ledger. Anyone around the world can see every transaction. You don't know who that is, but if they make us identify every address, then it's better to abandon the system, I guess. That's why I think we need privacy before governments get ideas about turning this into an Orwellian experiment. How we can protect this system? A good way is to run your own node and to educate yourself about the benefits of privacy and why you need it, and stand for the right principles. When you see that there is a slide towards authoritarianism, it's good to warn people, it's good to use your voice, whatever that may be, on social media, with local communities, explain to them why this is a bad idea, why you need privacy. And it's a fight, it's a struggle, and the authoritarians are not going to give up on their ability to surveil, to control, and to know information about ourselves. So we have to constantly stand for these principles, which are part of, if you read any constitution from Western countries, and even some authoritarian ones, they have principles about the dignity of the individual, the pursuit of happiness, privacy, and intimacy, and most of the times they're not respected. And we have to get back to first principles and realize what made our Western culture great. And part of it was the fact that we were able to have privacy against our governments and against our neighbors, and we had certain freedoms. Freedoms are like muscles. If you don't use them, they're going to get very weak and you're going to get broken. You need to constantly exercise your freedoms and do whatever you're allowed to do for as long as you can do, because the moment when you stop doing it, you're easier to control.